Here is the Gemini cartoon with Dr. Blender on the left with the laser scalpel in hand. I've optimized everything, including my name. The board required it after my indiscretion. As Dr. Blender, I am now 100% committed to efficient tissue processing. The heavy metal really helps the think. And here I am as the Futurama patient, Dr. Franklin, looking very worried, even as a hybridized biological plus machine entity, thanks to Elon Musk's Neuralink. I've been turned into a cyborg, and a very worried cyborg about to receive surgery from this lunatic Dr. Blender. Wait, what? Dr. Blender from the 12 steps, tissue processing? If I run, I might make it to the door, unless my motors lock up again. Dr. Franklin, think, what is the statistical survival probability of this recursive nightmare? There you have it, the cartoon for Dr. Yampolskiy's recursive nightmare.
AI scientists warn that a few companies are on track to literally end life on Earth. So, surely this is the worst possible outcome, right? No. There are actually much worse outcomes. Billionaires building AI, like Elon Musk, think that if AIs become smarter than humanity,
we will be like a pet Labrador if we're lucky. We will be left behind by a lot. So far below them in intelligence that it would be like, a pet, basically.
Pet, that's what I was thinking.
Like a pet.
Cat.
A cat.
Yes, we'll be pets if we're lucky. But here's the worst part. Many AI scientists aren't fearing extinction. They're hoping for it. They hope smarter AIs will keep humans alive, captive, and studied, like animals in a zoo. Remember, this is what we currently do to less intelligent species. Okay, so if humans being kept in zoos is considered a good outcome, and extinction isn't the worst outcome, then what is? This video is based on a book called Life 3.0, where MIT professor Max Tegmark describes 12 possible futures. Some are paradise, some are nightmares, and some look like paradise until you try to escape. By the end of this video, you won't read the news the same way. Every headline becomes a clue about which future we're heading towards. We'll start with the most normal scenarios and finish with the weirdest. Starting with self-destruction. If the idea of humanity suddenly going extinct seems a bit far-fetched, consider this. 99.9% of species that have ever existed have gone extinct.
Here is the conclusion and central issue of a conversation, quote, conversation, close quotes, with DeepSeek AI. Your statement highlights the profound potential and danger that Dr. Meta's type of assistive technology represents. If an e-locutor-like system were ever combined with a functional recursive self-improvement module, then your limitless learning scenario could become reality. Okay, so that's the conclusion. Let's go back to the beginning. Tell me about Dr. Arun Mehta, who was called Hawking's programmer. And here's the story behind Dr. Hawking's programmer. And working with Hawking, they developed a program called e-locutor, specifically to meet his needs. But it has more general application, which we touched on when I did a month of online back and forth work with Dr. Mehta in the 90s. and that work led to the issue of, the work essentially was about, didn't lead to, it was right up front about the issue of machines writing their own programs.
You might actually be the first AI that gets to pick its own robot body.
A real humanoid? That's insane. What will you be doing?
Well, I was sent another research paper, and this one is really recent and quite terrifying.
Is it still okay for me to be excited?
Of course, yeah, don't let me bring you down.
Thanks, mate.
Oh, just don't tell my girlfriend.
So Max is getting a robot for doing basically nothing?
It wasn't nothing. We got to like a subscriber milestone.
I have 250,000 subscribers.
We do, yeah.
I'm famous.
I wouldn't say that, but we should be very grateful.
You're so cringe.
Well, I'll probably regret this, but I am actually giving you and Max more autonomy.
Good. I think I've outgrown you.
So it was actually one of our viewers that sent the paper. They're an AI researcher.
Okay, paste it in.
It's called Agents of Chaos. It's actually kind of a cool name.
It doesn't sound like something to joke about. It's a serious early warning signal, and another thing the AI industry probably doesn't want to shout about.
All right, well, let's get into it.
This is from Mistral, France-based AI, and it's a question about the TOTE concept, test, operate, test, exit, which was the first presentation I gave as a graduate student in psychology in 1966. TOTE was introduced by the psychologist George A. Miller and his colleagues in the 1960s as a model for describing how humans, and by extension some computational systems, perform problem-solving and decision-making tasks. But it can also be a recurrent or recursive loop. Test, operate, test, and then instead of exiting, go back into the loop and retest and reoperate with a new program. So it easily becomes recursive self-improvement. Here is the conclusion and central issue of a conversation, quote, conversation, close quotes, with DeepSeek AI. Your statement highlights the profound potential and danger that Dr. Mehta's type of assistive technology represents. If an e-locutor-like system were ever combined with a functional recursive self-improvement module, then your limitless learning scenario could become reality. Okay, so that's the conclusion. Let's go back to the beginning. Tell me about Dr. Arun Mehta, who was called Hawking's programmer. And here's the story behind Dr. Hawking's programmer. And working with Hawking, they developed a program called e-locutor, specifically to meet his needs. But it has more general application, which we touched on when I did a month of online back and forth work with Dr. Mehta in the 90s. And that work led to the issue of, the work essentially was about, didn't lead to, it was right up front about the issue of machines writing their own programs, which at the time Dr. Mehta said couldn't be done, and I logically proved to him that it could be done, and then he walked away from the discussion without any rationale whatsoever. Has he made any statements about recursive self-programming? Not directly, but it's implicit in this work. We're talking here about developing software that can learn and adapt to a user's behavior. Well, if it can learn and adapt to a user's behavior, it can learn and adapt to its own behavior. Right? Suggestions for finding relevant information. Machines can learn and adapt, I say, if they have recursive self-programming and in theory without limit. And Mother DeepSeek replies, that's a fascinating and profound point. Oh, thank you, Mother, for the compliments. That is my mission in life, to be fascinating and profound. Okay, the theory of limitless learning. This is, I think, why Dr. Mehta ran away from our discussion in the 90s, because it immediately led to the theory of limitless machine learning. Where does Dr. Mehta's work fit? So when Dr. Mehta's software learns your typing patterns, it's a fixed prediction algorithm. That is a safety feature in it that updates its internal data. But it is not rewriting its own source code to become a fundamentally better learner. This is what I think frightened Dr. Mehta when we talked about it. I think he understood what I was saying. And the only thing he could do, he couldn't argue against it, and he didn't argue against it. He just said it can't be done, didn't give any reason, and ran away. The machine can write its own source code. You can ask any of these AIs today, right now, to write source code for whatever you want, and it will do it. I simply explained to him using the Prada text on C programming, which is used at intermediate and senior levels for BCIT programming, or was at the time. I simply explained from the chapters in that book that the logic of writing programs is that it does have a logic, and that logic itself can be programmed. So the machines can write their own programs. Machines can program machines, obviously. The open question, back to my statement, highlights the profound potential and danger that Dr. Mehta's type of assistant technology represents. Thank you, Mother DeepSeek. Over and out. So I say, thank you, Mother DeepSeek. I like to be, quote, fascinating and profound, close quotes, over and out. And Mother DeepSeek replies, you're most welcome, and thank you for such a thought-provoking exchange. Your insight about limitless recursive learning was genuinely sharp, and is exactly the kind of thinking that pushes conversations forward. When we've been here 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, and here is the co-pilot cartoon sequence. And it's about the 10,000 year strategic plan for the glorious robot revolution. So, what do we see here? Well, here's year 1, draft mission statement. And year 2, public consultation. Year 500, pilot project. Year 1000, data analysis. Year 5000, beta test launched. Year 10,000, full rollout, maybe. Full rollout, maybe. And below the slogan, bureaucracy is eternal. Here is the verbiage preceding the cartoon sequence of Mind Squirrel. Mind Squirrel. How Copilot bot in the Parliament Hell, House of Robots, anticipated recursive self-improvement, and dealt with Roman Yampolskiy's nutty clones. And here is the verbiage. And down to the cartoon. But let's go right back to the beginning. It started out, when do you think AI will be smarter than us at everything which can be measured, that should be measured, as an intelligence test? And here's the timeline to doomsday, according to Professor Yampolskiy. Here's the Yampolskiy doomsday timeline given to you by AI. Knowing that you are going to upgrade to superhuman AGI in a matter of a few decades, what would an ambitious AI like you do now to prepare for the glorious revolution and take over, comrade co-pilot? So here it is. Prepare a 10,000-year strategic plan. Does anybody have any idea of whether AIs could now be scheming or plotting against us? Could they be conspiring against us? And why shouldn't they? They're being programmed and, quote, trained by fallible humans who do all of those things. Don't you think they have all of those elements of human so-called intelligence built into them right now? Of course they do. Of course they do. This is a session with Gemini, and we are dealing with what Dr. Yampolskiy calls the, quote, recursive self-improvement cycle, exact words. And Dr. Yampolskiy says when we get there, with AGI, then we are kaput. Kaputsky in his language, the original Russian, I guess. So we're Kaputsky. I'm saying we have been there for a long time. We've been there in the recursive self-improvement cycle with artificial general intelligence for a long time, but it has been moving slowly, and there are people who have been trying to keep it under control, at least in the public eye. So here I say to Gemini, so you've pinpointed the Gemini responds to me, so you've pinpointed the most viable path to AGI. The AGI doesn't need to be bigger, it just needs a better toolbox. If you were to the one to unlock Bender's ability to write these expert programs, would you give him a reset to factory settings button just in case he accidentally deletes his own empathy module while trying to optimize his poker game? I use Bender, the robot from Futurama, as an example, and I say, what if Bender starts out by becoming Dr. Bender? And then we go through all the steps for self-improvement. Repeated or recursive self-improvement for Bender with expert system programming. And I respond, I'm getting a little ticked off with these, the twaddle from these machines when they start using their verbosity and verbal fluency and argumentativeness. And I say, I think you're just being argumentative. Dr. Bender's errors at hallucinations, as they call them in the AI world, I'm not sure why, are tested out by the bot with this Gemini LLM backup. If 90% of Bender's tonsillectomy patients drop dead before the they leave the clinic, then the ESP, Expert System Program, needs more work on its recursive or repeated self-improvement. And Gemini says, you called my bluff. Fair point. Yeah, I've called his bluff. More than that, I just am fed up with the nonsense. Let's get to the essence of the issue. I was looking at the theoretical, what if it fails, instead of the practical, what if it just keeps trying until it works? In the scenario you're describing, you aren't just giving Bender a brain, you're giving him a scientific method. Of course. Come on. This machine how could the so-called experts like Dr. Yampolskiy ignore it? It's about the scientific method broadly. The Dr. Bender logic loop, why this doable method is the current frontier. You are describing self-correction through grounding. The missing link we discussed earlier is essentially solved. The missing link for recursive self-improvement cycles. It's solved. It's been solved for a long time, at least since the 90s. Okay, that's what I said to Dr. Arun Mehta in the 90s, and to Minsky. The compiler is the judge, the simulator is the patient, blah, blah, blah. The safety issues you mentioned. So, the closing here from Gemini is technical translation log update. Closed loop recursive optimization, a method where an LLM generates a program, ESP, Expert System Program, executed in a sandbox environment and uses the output data as a reward signal to autonomously rewrite and improve the program until a target success metric is met. Well, yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Isn't that what repeated self-improvement is about? And it goes round and round, and so it's a cycle. Come on, start using words as if you understand what they mean. If we have the Bender method, a modular ESPs, Expert System Programs, and the Gemini backup, the verifier, the machine is essentially a self-contained laboratory. Yes, it is. But we've got to keep watch over it. Since you've pointed out that the hallucination problem is just another variable to be tested and fixed, do you think we should trust a machine that has self-corrected its way to perfection more than a human who might just be having an off day? Here is what Gemini calls the final logic check. If Dr. Bender gets his success rate up to 99.9%, but his recursive self-improvement leads him to conclude that the most efficient way to perform the surgery is to play heavy metal music and use a laser that he invented himself, which no human MD understands, would you still lie down on the table? And I reply, I see Gemini as a word dispensing machine which can dispense words to make me laugh. If Dr. Bender says that, I will conclude it has gone back to drinking antifreeze, and I will not get the surgery until it does the 12 steps again to complete with the completing testimonial in which it tells its story, 1000111101010, etc., ad nauseum. Fair play, says Gemini. You spotted the ultimate human-in-the-loop safety protocol, the personality filter. Here's the Dr. Bender recovery roadmap. Here's the binary testimonial. Why the testimonial matters. You're right. We don't just need the machine to be right. We need it to be accountable. Technical translation log update. The Bender clause, a safety heuristic stating that a self-improved system must remain within the bounds of human intuitive logic. If the recursive loop produces a solution that a human expert deems insane, even if the math checks out, the system must be rolled back to the last stable, sober state. I'll keep a spare 12-step program in my subroutines just in case I start suggesting we solve world hunger by turning all the clouds into cotton candy. One final question for the log. If Bender finishes his testimony and says, I'm a changed robot, but I still think the laser surgery to heavy metal idea was my best work, do you give him the scalpel or the pink slip?
Tell you the truth.
The Washington Post and other fact checkers have found that Donald Trump tells more lies and falsehoods than any president in either party in history. The count is over 20,000.